Hello, everyone. Welcome to Center of Light. This is the time to be clear. You need to be clear. We're living in the greatest time in human history. Forward, backward, mostly right now. It's all happening in this moment. Are you happening in this moment? Question simply always goes back to you. Let me do a couple of refreshers real quick. Trying some new things. So welcome everyone to Center of Light Radio tonight. I have a fantastic guest for you. Miss Bridget Finklaire, or as I might say in France, Bridget Finklaire. I think she'll laugh. I hope she doesn't get upset about that. Just me clowning. Everyone, welcome. I've got everything going. So welcome to Center of Light. A couple of things. I'm going to be doing a course sometime soon. I am taking your suggestions of what you would like that course to be. I have a few in mind myself. One is about how to find yourself. You're not really lost. How to find yourself in such a crazy world kind of thing. But I'm open to your suggestions. I can play in any spiritual sandbox. So send that to me. The last workshop I've done was over a year ago. I think it's time. I love doing things that bring me together with people. Also, first order of business, Homecoming, Crossing the Bridge to the Soul, my new bestseller, thanks to Gavin Lee Davies. The link is in this forum. You can find that information to take you to Amazon to purchase my bestseller, 30 Years of My Life Compressed, as well as use the same link to leave me a 5-star review, or whatever is the honest truth and how you feel about diving into my heart, this mind. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. Blessings, blessings. Let's get down to some Center of Light Radio. Hello, everyone. Let me get my notes to tell you about my guest tonight, Miss Bridget Finklaire. I hope I got her last name right, Finklaire. Bridget Finklaire is an author and spiritual teacher with almost 30 years of experience. She is a qualified and experienced psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, and healer, and was a professional therapist in London's Harley Street. Bridget left England in 2012 for Cape Town, where she now lives with her South African husband. She loves teaching, writing, and speaking, weaving together the threads of her spiritual, I love that, weaving together, I'm a wordsmith and I love it, weaving together the threads of her spiritual and professional journeys. She designed the Bone Circle. I'm curious about that. A unique, transformative, and life-changing program that ties together 3 significant areas of expertise: intuition and creating, the sacred and the metaphysical, and therapy and healing. Bridget has facilitated and taught many courses, including meditation, healing, dowsing, sacred geometry. This lady is well-rounded. Love it. And space clearing. She's also facilitated a course in miracles, created TruthYoga, a return to yoga as a spiritual practice, and FreedomDance, a free-form conscious shamanic trance dance. She currently facilitates a study group for the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch. I had an experience with JJ Hurtak many years ago that changed me from soul to bones, literally. I saw a picture of myself on a screen back in the VHS days. He was doing a presentation and he said, "This person is here." And I was beside myself. Someone pointed it out to me and sent me the video. That's another show. Bridget's intention is to awaken people to a higher purpose and a more joyful and harmonious life. She does this through creating awareness, providing a high path of consciousness, teaching how to tap into intuitive wisdom, and setting up support groups that can work together powerfully to create positive change. Her favorite saying is an African one: "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." She believes we need to go together in supporting a new evolution in consciousness. Let me grab these links, how you can find more about my powerful guest, came highly recommended, as well as purchase her new book, which is tonight's title, Red Dress. Who does not love a woman in a red dress? Welcome to Center of Light, darling. Hang on one second. Welcome to Center of Light, darling. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Keith, thank you so much for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I've got my red jacket on here. Not a red dress. It's too cold. I'm in Cape Town in the middle of winter, so way too cold for a red dress. Yeah, interesting story about Dr. Hurtak. We'll have to have another whole session about that one day. I love it. Yeah, and I love your idea for your workshop, finding yourself. I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? Awareness, finding yourself, moving forward. Thank you for having me on this evening.
How do you want to play? What sandbox you want to visit first?
We could do eeny, meeny, miny, mo if you like.
Sure. Let me ask you this. Was it innate in you growing up that you were going to somehow walk this path? Or did something come along and kick you in your keister? And that's how it happened for me. I was just living in chaos and anger and the world. And then the world kicked me in the pants and said, you need to go inward. How did it happen for you, dear?
It didn't happen like that. And this is the question that people ask me, and I've had to really kind of think about this to give a proper answer, because I believe that we all choose this path before we even come in. So my journey, our journeys, your journey, my journey, we probably started eons ago in another life. And then with this life, we said, right, we're going in, because you mentioned, that we're living in the greatest time at the moment. And for me, it is absolutely, I'm on the same song sheet as you. We're living through a powerful gateway moment right now, and I think we queued up to be here. So probably it started before then, but I didn't have any kind of like major kick up the pants like some people have. I didn't have like any major illness or major thing go wrong in my life. But what happened was I was born into a challenging family. Obviously, I'm aware I chose my family, and I'm grateful for them now because they made me who I am today, and I love them unconditionally anyway. But it was a very challenging family to be born into. I had 3 older brothers. The next one up, they were a lot older than me, 7, 10, and 12 years older than me. The eldest was like a bit of a father figure to me. He was lovely. I loved him very dearly. He went to university when I was 5, and then he died when I was 15. The younger brother was 5 years younger than me, so he was just the little brother. But the other 2 used to just be actually quite nasty to me. They used to tease me and humiliate me. I probably was just the silly little girl who didn't know anything. But also my parents were quite difficult characters to be around as parents. They were charming and wonderful and charismatic, and there were wonderful, wonderful qualities about them that I learnt from. But they also happened to have narcissistic personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. Now, growing up in a family like that, there's nothing obvious. You don't think there's any kind of abuse going on. It's not like there's no physical abuse, no sexual abuse, nothing like that. But there's an emotional abuse going on which you're not aware of, and you think it's normal. So what happened is when I left home, I kind of like was one of those people that I'm going to fake it. I'm just going to fake that everything's okay. I'm going to move to London. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to, run away from my childhood and my parents, and that's what I did. I kind of faked it and made it. But there's a hollowness inside to that, because there is still the anger and the sadness and the trauma that goes along with that kind of childhood, and that had to be resolved. And actually what kick-started all of that, really, I mean, there's bits when I look back. I used to have an imaginary friend, which I'm sure I was channeling. I was always interested in some things that were outside of what most people would call normal. But the thing that really, really started me seriously was at the age of 30, I had my daughter, and then 2 years later, I had my son. So becoming a mother for me, I just wanted to be the best version of myself, and I wanted to be the best mum I could be. And I realized there were problems because my role model was my parents, and I was looking around me, and my peer group hadn't got the same values as me. And I just thought, I need to sort my stuff out. And so it was really, my daughter being born that kick-started my journey. And it went in parallel. So there was, on the one hand, I went and had therapy and counseling and went down that road. And at the same time, the spiritual side started to become more stronger and stronger. And eventually those 2 parallel paths converged. And that's when things started getting really interesting.
Sounds a lot like my life, actually. There was no abuse in my home, but just being in the ancestral line of what came before me and what came before that and what came before that, I inherited certain patterns that I had to break. And I swore to my inner self many years ago, the curse ends here. My parents are beautiful. My family's beautiful. and this is not anything on South Louisiana, but it's the location of a certain level of consciousness. And in that level of consciousness, I was with that program. And the greatest decision I've ever made was to move to Memphis, Tennessee. Pursuing music, running away from a bad relationship, but running to infinite possibility in my life. Since I brought up the word consciousness, what is consciousness? What is the importance of raising it? What is the key? I know it's the key to our evolution, but what is consciousness and how do we raise it? And what is all the benefits for doing so?
Wow. It's my big thing really that I like to talk about, and it's such a huge subject. And I think sometimes it's actually easy to say, let's say what it isn't, because I think some people think that consciousness is like, we can be unconscious if you've been knocked out in a boxing ring, can't you? You can be unconscious if you're on a operating table, and all that means is the sodium ions in your brain are not firing, your conscious thinking mind is not awake. But that's not what I'm talking about. So in that regard, consciousness just means we're alive and well, we're thinking. But I mean something much more than that. For me, consciousness is becoming aware. And that awareness is internal and external and infinite in possibility. So it's first of all awakening too. Like you said, you awakened to that ancestral programming, if you like, that was running through. And I love there's a thing, that stuff rolls downhill till somebody stops it in families. And you have the courage to say no and become aware and make that promise to yourself. So becoming aware of what's going on inside our conditioning, what's running the show in the little, I call it the small self, and also becoming aware of the greater self, that we're luminous beings of light, that there's a greater cosmology, that there's infinite creation. So consciousness keeps growing, and it's a never-ending journey, because we become more and more consciously aware of ourselves. And as we clear that stuff and let go of what's no longer serving us, more light comes in, more love comes in, consciousness is expanding, awareness is getting greater. And as we do that, we start to think about other people. We become aware that things are connected, that we're all one. We become aware of beings of light on the other side. We become much more aware of the divine or source or God and what that really is. And our awareness just keeps expanding and expanding, and we keep growing. So each step of the way, there's another layer, and I think it's infinite, and it's terribly exciting. And actually, I think it's the key to everything, because if everybody became aware, we could do away with a hell of a lot of stuff that really isn't good in the world, like, war and greed and poverty and fighting and all sorts of stuff. All comes from lack of awareness. So, yeah, even things like, I live in South Africa now, and we have a lot of poverty in the townships, and you can see that awareness is the key to even unlocking what's going on there. If you can make mothers aware and they can make their children aware, you can start shifting things at grassroots levels for the next generation. So I think it's key to the human evolution.
So consciousness, awareness, all these spiritual qualities that we're trying to get to and to embody, it's not really, we already have these things. It's sort of like being a sculptor. You basically removing the extraneous, non-useful stuff so that what is already there simply just reveals itself. And that sounds sort of like a separation. What is already there reveals itself as if there is something other than me. It's really not. It's just basically, someone basically put a blindfold over your eyes and you claim you can't see. So it's more of a pulling apart, a pulling away, or just removing bits and pieces of the non-self.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Love the way you've said that. We talk about the veil, don't we? And we always think it's like somebody with loads of different net curtains over them, and they can't see anything. And what they do see is very blurry. And the more you take that away, the more they see. Like you were saying about the statue, for me, I feel like that eternity is there, creation is there, and it's all structured on different levels and realms and dimensions. And we don't see all of that, but the more aware we become, the more we see how connected we are, and the more we see of it. So yeah, we're not disconnected from it. It's just the illusion that we are because of our stuff. And
it can be tough. It can be tough to pry. We're holding on to this thing and we claim we want to let it go. And someone says, look, we'll just simply open your hand. And then even want to help you release it. But some part of us still wants to hold on to this reality. But because I think for many people, including myself back when, We don't want to die. Because that is our identity. Everything that we're holding on to, really, I want to hold on to myself and what I believe is me. But my condolences to whoever you are. You're going to either jump off the cliff on your own, or someone like me is going to be standing next to you and we're going to push you off. But so most of my life, this guy has been looking for quick fixes. We all look for quick fixes. And sometimes quick fixes can be fun and serve you, self-gratifying in the moment. You want something to eat? Well, you need a quick fix. You got to go get something to eat. It's not like you can, over a course of time, eat one meal and have it serve you for the rest of your life. People want quick fixes, but that's seldom the way. Healing, wholeness, stillness, joy, expansion of consciousness is a lifelong process for most of us. Luckily, it gets easier and life gets better along the way. Can you tell me more about that? How it's not, quick fixes. Really it's a quick bang and it doesn't go anywhere else.
Yeah, I know. Do you know what? I'm so with you on this. You could have done my interview for me, because we're kind of singing from the same song sheet. Everybody is looking for a quick fix, and people are kind of, I think, you see that as a therapist, people coming to a therapy shop, they want to go and find this one breakthrough session. And you find that with spiritual work as well. People want to come and do this one course with you, and then they're going to be enlightened and have their angel wings or something. And that's not how it works most of the time. I do think there are some lucky few who have some kind of incident or experience that kind of takes them up. And I say it's a bit like going to the top of a very high building. But you can see a lot more from the top of a big apartment block than you can if you're in the basement. And that's a little bit like awareness and consciousness. You're riding the elevator to the top of the block, so you've got this much bigger view and you can see how it's all connected. Now, most people have to take the stairs step by step to the top. Every so often you get someone who's lucky enough to get the elevator. So when we think of people like Eckhart Tolle, for example, who had that moment and he just got it and it dropped in, or Anita Moorjani, I know's just written another book, and she had near-death experience, and then it just drops in. So there's a few lucky people who get.
I love Eckhart. I love the way you said that. An elevator to go up. Well, his elevator went up when he fell down, because if I remember the story correctly, he lost a relationship. He was laying in his bed late at night. The moon was bright, and he went inside of himself because he was depressed. I'm paraphrasing the story, of course. Something to the point of, I can't live with myself. And it dawned on him, well, who is this me that can't live with myself? There's two. And he began to fall so far inside of himself. He heard an inner voice say, do not resist. And he kept falling. And the next morning he woke up and he saw a bird on his windowsill. And he said, oh my God, this is what love looks like. And he sat on a park bench feeding pigeons for 2 years, realizing that what most people are infinite.
You just dropped out a little bit there. I couldn't hear your vocal.
He spent 2 years on a park bench and feeding the birds. And he realized what most people are looking for always is what he just recently found in his life. He found it, the it that everyone wants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And he was lucky enough to be in that elevator and just have that experience. Interesting that you said it was about letting go and surrendering. And earlier you were saying about how the identity grabs hold and doesn't want to let go. And that is one of the things. And nobody said it was going to be a walk in the park or it was going to be easy. But, we meet these challenges along the way, but those challenges enable us to grow. And as you said, as we continue on that journey, it does get easier. And I think as well with the letting go and the challenges and the facing of our dragons or our demons, when at the beginning it's hard, and then after a while you get used to it and you just go, no, well, it's just a paper tiger. I just need to face it and let go of it and allow it and be with it. And you're going to come out the other side. So it's much easier. You've got a bigger picture with it. So it just gets easier.
Now that you've expanded your spiritual mass, do you find it tough living in duality? I can sit here and be Mr. Spiritual and say, well, no, I'm centered. I'm very centered. I get duality. I'm right in the middle and I'm on both sides of the fence. That's not always the case.
Especially with what's playing out right now in the world, we're seeing a lot of duality because it's just polarizing even more. And we've got a lot of fake news on both sides of the table, and, you know, living in interesting times. And what I'm finding is I feel like sometimes I'm at the top of the pendulum of duality. So if we think about duality like a pendulum swinging from one way to the other, and sometimes I feel like I'm at that apex of the pendulum, looking down and seeing it playing out. And it's almost like watching The Matrix, you know, that film, The Matrix. You've got the guys that still are in the Matrix and don't realize it's a Matrix. You've got the baddies who are running the Matrix and Agent Smith. And then you've got the Neo, you know, and the rebels. And I just feel like I'm at the top watching it all play out. So I think the further we go on the journey and the more we're able to find stillness and connect to source, the less the duality bothers us, because we know there's a higher, bigger plan. There's something much bigger than all of this. And of course, we're human, so every so often we get triggered. But by and large, I choose to focus on what's positive and create what's good in my life and the life of others. And that raises everybody. And sometimes you just get caught unawares when something awful and tragic happens, and particularly people you love, and that can pull you back down in, because we're human and we care.
I totally loved your analogy of being at the top of the pendulum versus being moved by the current that comes and goes, and it comes hard, both directions. But just simply being the still, the core, the pivot point, if you will, the teeter-totter. You know, I see the world around me, and it you know, good comes in, bad comes in, hot, cold, in, out, up, down. But I'm truly not affected by the world. Sometimes, just like all of us, you know, it's tempting to go back to the old paradigm. And like you said, sometimes something happens to someone you care about, which is everyone, but someone that's close to family when lightning strikes in the family. You know, you get moved in, and I think we should get moved into the sorrows, if you will, of the world, but not get lost, because in the moving of the sorrows of the world, getting moved with the sorrows of the world, we get to go in there and change it. Because if you don't like the color of your bedroom, you can't change it outside the room. You don't like this ugly color green, you have to go into the problem, into the green, to change it to something more beautiful, something more that suits your taste. So I think that it's beneficial that we, you know, even myself in certain presentations are called The World an Illusion. And my spiritual teacher, who happens to be a God-realized man on earth today, Swamiji Visvayogi, says the world is not an illusion, it's real. And you must be in the world, because being in the world, and if you understand that the world is an illusion and you use that as a term to describe that it truly is a facade, but also know that the higher spiritual practice is, it's not an illusion. It's something that you really need to be in to be able to be a part of, to bring about a difference.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, I think of it as schoolhouse earth as well. It's teaching us lessons. And although, you know, on one level you can say it's an illusion, we've made a decision to be here for a reason. And there's a danger, I think, when people just go, oh, it's all an illusion, to go into denial and detach from the world. And then what good are you if you're just sitting there gazing at your navel, meditating, and you're wonderfully enlightened? But what are you doing for everybody else in the world, for humanity? And I absolutely agree that you need to be inside it. We queued up to come here, and we've come here to shine our light and to raise consciousness and to make the world a better place and to evolve humanity, and to learn and to grow. And I think we need to know, we need to know what's going on, so we know where to put the light, and changes need to be made, what's going on for people, where people are at, what the collective consciousness is, what the collective unconscious is. We need to kind of be aware, but we don't want to get caught in the spiral of it, because it will pull you down. If you go into, it's like going into a whirlwind or something, or a plug hole. You know, you can get pulled down into a vortex, and you don't want to do that. You want to be able to observe it and act accordingly, and be empathetic, be sympathetic, be human. We come here to experience being human and to experience it all, but don't get dragged down into it all.
And do you think, this brings me to my next question, perfectly arrives. Do you think it's because of our emotions? There's a difference for me between emotion and feeling. They sound like the same, but they're not. Feeling is, there's no label. It's feeling. It's raw feeling. You know, when you smash your pinky toe on a piece of furniture, there's no emotion. There's a feeling that it's very, very present. Emotion is emotion is led by the mind. So let's talk about emotion. Is it helpful to understand that we understand what emotions are?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I also like to separate out the identity's emotions, say, and the greater self's emotions. So if we think about the identity or the ego or the small self, however you want to phrase that, we're built to survive. So we're humanly beings are wired for fight, flight, or freeze. If there's a danger, if there's any kind of danger. So fight, flight, or freeze equates to, well, fight is anger, and then flight is fear, and freeze is you're handing your power over to someone else. It actually ends up creating depression or sadness. And from those three base emotions, everything else, which I'd call emotion, comes from those. So even if it's just I'm frustrated, that's a form of anger, or I'm a bit concerned, that's a form of fear. So they're all coming from that kind of triad of fight, flight, and fear, fight, flight, or fear, which is there to help us to survive. And this is why people are so afraid of death, because we're hanging on to life. But then I would say that in the greater universe, the ground state of being is love. Love is the way. Love is all there is, love and light. And from love, as a ground state of being, once we remove the layers of the anger, the fear, and the sadness, we can start to, that love starts to flow in, and that love then has its own colors, if you like. So we've got joy, which I always think of as love in action. We've got happiness, we've got contentment, we've got gratitude, we've got peace. So those things, for me, they're not really emotions. They're shades and colors and hues of love, which is a ground state of being. So it's the things that cause an emotional trigger in us that are coming from the conditioned mind, from the ego self. And I think the biggest thing for people is it's not about removing all of those emotions or denying all of those emotions or trying to get rid of them or push them down inside or give them full vent either. The most powerful thing I think I can probably say about emotions, which I teach in the Bone Circle, is they're not a true reflection of reality. They might feel, it's a little bit like the world, it's an illusion, but it is actually real. Your emotions might feel very real to you, but they're very rarely pointing to true north. They're not actually a true reflection of reality. So once you realize that, you can be the observer and watch them and go, yeah, I'm feeling angry about that, or I'm feeling scared about that, but I don't need to take any notice of that. So it's not a true barometer.
I did a presentation the other night, part 2, about depression. Make it stop. And I talked about that very thing you said at the beginning of this segment when you started. We were talking about feelings and emotions, which is grief, anger, and depression is a complete circle. Depression is anger turned inward, and grief, you lose someone in death or in life. You'll grieve. I grieved for 2 years and I fell into a dark night of the soul and I was angry and all this stuff. But I think not only are they related, it's the same thing with a different spin. It's a different facet of the same illusionary, erroneous self. Would you say?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that how deep, it's like shades, isn't it? Shades of the same thing. And how deeply you might feel something is going to depend on so many factors. What the event is that you're reacting and responding to, like if you have just lost someone who's very close to you, that's a big piece of grieving. You're going to feel knocked by that more than if somebody's passed away that you didn't actually know so well, even though we are loving beings that see that we're all connected. So there's a thing about proximity and how involved you were in a relationship level, because really life is about, if we're all one and unity, it's all about relating, isn't it? So there's the one thing is about how close is that relationship, how deep is that relationship? or and then the other thing is, how deep is your conditioning? What happened to you? Where are you in terms of letting go and growing? What are your traumas? Because the less awake, and it goes back to consciousness, the less conscious you are, the less awake you are, the less aware you are, the more conditioned you are, the more you're going to feel those things strongly and for longer and find it difficult to get out of them.
I always say consciousness brings about joy, peace, bliss, all these wonderful qualities. Unconsciousness only brings trouble.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're not aware of that said piece of furniture we talked about earlier and you broke your pinky toe. If the light is off, if there's darkness and you can't see, you husband or wife bought you a piece of furniture. God bless them. Thank you, honey, for doing that. But you don't know it's there. And you walk into the room thinking everything's the same. You break your toe. And likewise, analogously, I want to know if something is going down so I can best fall into myself and be prepared for whatever may come. Unconsciousness will only bring about trouble. Everyone, Center of Light Radio tonight, my guest was Miss Bridget Finklaire, and we're speaking about lots of cool things. I did drop a link in these forums to her website. Go stomp all over her page. Let her know you exist. The link is also in these forums for the purchasing of her book. How was your dreamscape at night?
My dreamscape. I tell you what, if I could sleep, it would be a wonderful thing. I've just gone through. It's 2:00 in the morning here. I've just gone through menopause. I think I'm probably still on the outer edge of it. I know why they call it the change. It's actually, for any women that are out there that are listening, I just think it's the most amazing, powerful rite of passage that we can go through as a women. But what happens is, because all of your hormones get a bit sort of up the creek, you're not protected. I've only just learned this actually. You're not protected from stress in the way that you used to be. So if you live a full life, which I do, what happens is your adrenals think, oh, she's stressed, and actually I'm not stressed. I'm enjoying my life. It's just things that need to be done. It's just life. But the body goes, oh, she's stressed, and instead of just producing adrenaline, it produces cortisol, and cortisol is long-term stress hormone, which is designed to keep you awake. So my sleep patterns are appalling, and a lot of the time I'm lying there meditating with a grin on my face, filled with light and love, and I'm thinking, I really wish I could sleep. And then when I do sleep, I'm usually so deep asleep when I finally go that I don't remember things. So, but I do have a lot of images and dreamscapes in my meditations and in those twilight times. I see a lot of geometries, I see a lot of colors, I see a lot of fractals, things like that.
When you have these experiences of geometry and fractals and all these shapes and forms, is there information that comes with it, or are you just looking at some cool looking design?
Sometimes I'm just looking at a cool design and going,
do you understand? I'm sure you do. Let's say whatever pictogram shows up and it's a tetrahedron or whatever it may be. Of course, you may know that's a tetrahedron or whatever it may be, but do you find yourself infused, impregnated with, why it showed up? What does it really mean? Do you get details?
Yeah, I also get the voice in my head. I get told things quite a lot, like, don't worry about this and that's fine, and you need to do this and you don't need to do that, and so wherever is not well, and you probably should just send them a prayer and some healing. So I get told a lot of things, and I have this knowing thing. I think some people are clairaudient, clairvoyant, all these different things. I've always been one of those people just like, I just know. But in recent years, I do get a very calm, clear male voice, sometimes benevolent, beautiful voice, part of the Godhead, I would say, just guiding me, which is wonderful. But going back to the geometries, because of everything that I've studied, very often I know exactly what it's all about, and I'm going, oh, this is really, really cool. I'm seeing, lots of tetrahedrons, say, or Mogan Davids, or Shriyantras, or swirling vortexes of light. Oh, this is really cool, because I know that this is part of a higher geometry, part of a higher sacred geometry, and the colors as well are fabulous.
Yeah, and many colors that we have there don't exist here. Our eyes are not able to see in said bandwidth. we're at the bottom of the hour-ish. Let's
You just dropped out for a moment there. Sorry.
Did it? Something I need to do a sound card update. Let's talk about your book, Red Dress. How did this come about? How long did it take you to write it? When was it released?
Okay, so it's actually not going to be released until, so it's not quite released yet. It's launched on the 30th of July in the UK, and in USA it's 1st of August this year. So I think it's about 5 weeks from now or something, 4.5 weeks it's going to be launched. So that's when it's going to be launched. How did it come about and how long did it take me to write me? Well, that's an interesting story. So I always knew, well, not always knew, but for a while I had friends, you know, obviously you've got lots of kooky, wonderful friends who are on the path. And I used to have friends that used to go, you're going to write a book. And I had this one particular friend in London. She used to go, you're going to write a book, you know. And I just think, oh, yeah, you know, I'm a therapist. I'm not going to write a book. So never took any notice. And then when I sort of trained to tap in at will to my intuition, I got, you're going to write a book. And then I got this, another friend of mine going, you know, and he's like Australian, now you're going to write a book. And it's like, oh, okay. And I kind of still wasn't sure about this writing a book business. And that afternoon when, you know, I've got this message, I was going to write this book. This was an actual conversation on Skype. And that afternoon, I just hung up this conversation on Skype and I was thinking, now I think he's got this wrong. I don't think I'm going to write a book. Somebody rang on my doorbell. I'd just moved to Cape Town. I didn't know anybody. I'd lived in sort of on the peninsula in a beach house for a couple of weeks or something and didn't really know anybody. And somebody knocked on my door and I thought, who the heck's this? I open it and it's the neighbour from across the road. And they said, would you like to come to join us? We're having a birthday party this evening at our house in the garden. They're having a braai. Well, a braai is like a barbecue. It's just what they call a barbecue. They call it a braai. So I said, oh, yeah, I'd love to come. I go there. And the woman it's her birthday, she's having the braai, she's a writer, and everybody there is either a writer or an editor or a publisher. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, the universe is always speaking to you. This is my confirmation, you need to write a book. It took me a bit of a time to get into it. And then I just sat there one day and I kept getting intuitively, you're going to write a novel. And it was like, no. Well, I don't know anything about writing a novel. No, I thought I was going to write a factual book, you know, like 7 easy steps to raising your consciousness or something like that. No. My guidance was telling me, intuitively telling me, no, you're going to write a novel. So in the end, I knew I couldn't put it off. I procrastinated at first. In the end, I sat down, and this was in about 2013. I sat down and it was cold. It was winter in the Cape and it was freezing. And I sat in this little rented apartment that I had. And I literally went into meditation. I connected with whatever I needed to connect with. And then I heard a voice go, open your eyes and start writing. And I started writing and I thought, you know, I just have to keep going. And that's not what the book was. I mean, it just started the storyline, and it started that it was in London. It was a woman. She was stressed out. She was a therapist. I was thinking, this is too close to home. It's like an autobiography. No, keep writing. It took me about 2 years to finish that manuscript. And then I realized it wasn't structured properly as a novel. So I needed to go away and do some homework and learn about character development and learn about plot points and learn about how to write a novel and then write it again. And so the total thing, and in between all of that, by the way, I got married and built a house, and went through menopause. So I kind of parked the whole project for about 2 years. So the total time was 7 years, but actual writing time was about 4 years, I would say. And it took a long time to really hone it and polish it and make it a page-turning, fun novel that you can enjoy reading, but that shares lots of spiritual pearls of wisdom. So that was the idea. I wanted to write a novel that was fun and easy to read and accessible, that you could take on holiday or on vacation and lie on the beach and read this thing. And if you wanted to just take it as a story of a woman who's burning out and not having a very good time of her life and decides to do some wacky alternative things, and there's a bit of an adventure going on, that's fine. If you just want to take it at that level, that's fine. But you can take it at lots of different levels, and there's a lot of wisdom in there. So that was the idea behind it. And yeah, that's Red Dress.
So why the red dress? What is the red dress? Is it something she wears when she comes to a space of realization and goes out one night and clubbing? I mean, what is her red dress? Is it something you can give away?
I don't know if I can give that away. Well, I don't know. Let's see. She ends up going on a spiritual path to find herself, really, and she's outwardly successful, and inwardly it's quite painful for her. So she goes on a path of self-discovery, and she works with therapy, and she also works with different spiritual techniques, and she meditates, she does yoga, and she's a Reiki healer. But she goes for this thing called aurosoma therapy, which some of your listeners may have heard of. They're like these little kind of bottles of essences that you can buy. She goes and has one of those, and she ends up wearing these crazy colors that go with the bottles. And then it's called red dress because she actually gets to the end of all of that, and she goes to put on whatever the color scheme is, and I can't remember right now which one it is at that time, and she suddenly realizes that it's gone and she's finished, and she's worked through all the things that she needed to work through, and that she can wear anything she likes in her wardrobe. So she flings open her wardrobe and she's looking at what she's going to wear to this thing, and she hears this voice go, red dress.
Love it.
So
I love it.
She says it 3 times. So she ends up wearing the red dress. I won't give away any more. You'll have to read it to find out what happens to her in the red dress.
You know, you and I share something pretty powerful. And your book is published with John Hunt, of course, but is it 6th Books? What division?
It's actually Roundfire, which is the fiction.
Our books were released 1 year apart, the exact same day. My book in the UK and eastward was August 1st and July 31st in this part of the time zone. Exactly.
Wow.
All right.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I already know that your book's going to go bestseller, so congrats.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Bless you. Thank you.
You will definitely cater to the women's audience, 35 plus, 30 plus, but 35 plus. That's kind of like you're going to see these numbers actually in this particular demographic. Yeah,
I think so. I kind of wrote it in my head. I was thinking, women 35 plus are going to love this book, because I think a lot of people are going to relate to the character, Katie.
From what I'm getting from it so far, it's going to help them to become consciously sassy.
I think we need more women who are consciously sassy.
Let's talk about awakening and becoming in this dichotomy of things. There's so much moving around. You know, we get distracted easy, you know, there's a squirrel. We start chasing the squirrel. I'm going into meditation. There's a squirrel. And so how do we find ourselves planted in all this movement, this dichotomy, this cosmic joke that's being played on all of us, really?
Oh, how do we not get distracted? Is that what you're asking? How do we find that center?
I'm asking you to help me, because sometimes I get distracted from my center. Hey, a squirrel. The dichotomy, this in and out of things, this up and down of things, this joy and sadness. When I had the dark night of the soul, it hurt. It hurt like a God knows what. Hindsight, many, many years later, it's the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. I didn't know it then.
The wound is where the light comes in, Rumi. I think, and that's the cosmic joke, actually, isn't it? That the biggest wound, not just the things that happen, the dark night of the souls, but the things that we're wounded. For me, it kind of goes back to Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, is that we're wounded in relation to love. So the greater love, and that wound creates our identity, or our ego self, which is really our vehicle of orientation and our earth suit, if you like, that enables us to live in this world. And what has to happen is, I think a lot of people try to reject the ego, but what we need to do is actually get the ego or the identity working together synergistically with the greater self. So one of the things I like to say is, we are a greater luminous self, and we have a smaller ego self. And it's about there's a wonderful quote as well, and so I'm digressing a little bit. Because I'm going, whoop, there's a squirrel, you see. But there's a wonderful quote by Einstein that says, the intuitive mind is the sacred gift, and the rational mind is the faithful servant. We've created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And so the ego, if we get the ego back to being the servant, it serves us. Because you see, my ego had to write the book, but my luminous self was able, or my greater self, higher self, divine self, whatever you want to call that, had to channel through the little me that had to have the fingers that worked the keyboard that made the book. So we need to work in synergy. So that's one way of not getting caught in the swing of that pendulum. The other way, we talked about being at the top of the pendulum. And the other way is the sort of classic Buddhist way of not getting drawn into either way. It's a wave. It's a waveform. And when you realize everything is a waveform, you don't attach to the things that you crave, and you don't try to move away from the things you're averse to. And I think if you can remember that this too shall pass, you can ride that wave and realize that nobody, however enlightened they are, is happy 100% of the time. I think if they're saying they are, they may be in denial, because there are things there is a squirrel that we suddenly catch. There are things that happen to us. You know, we are human. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and we have to experience all of those things. But the more conscious and aware we are, the more we can detach from that thing and not get pulled into it. I think that's part of it, isn't it? And also just staying focused. So I think when people are aware, and this goes more into the bone circle training, when people are aware of who they really are and what they're here to do, what their soul purpose is, what their talents and skills and passions are, what they love doing, they can make a choice and a decision to fulfill that and do that. And then you've got more focus, and then you're less distracted by all the shiny things along the way.
Many spiritual people, they want to kill the ego. They want to squash it. They just want to remove it. You don't want to do that. Without an ego, you can't drive a car. Without an ego, you won't have a family, because you'll be pure spirit, and therefore you have no business being here. But something I've done many years ago to bring my ego back into a space of being a servant versus the master was, I realized, like said spiritual people, that in their post, they will always claim that, kill the ego, or however they describe it, but that's the model. I love being me. I love me and all my frailties. I'm not trying to fix me. I'm just trying to get better or full of myself, basically. But I made a deal with the monkey. He wants what he wants, and he will not stop until he gets it. So what I do is I pacify him. I treat him like a child. A child wants a candy, and they will know, even if they get their ass whipped in a department store, they will throw that fit for that candy, knowing they're not going to get it, knowing they're going to get their butt spanked by some people. That's how I grew up. Not that I would do that to my children. The point is, this is the analogy. And I realize I get down to my ego's level, and I give him a banana. One, he can't talk. He's got a banana in his mouth. And I told him, and I did this in meditation for quite often, you step on his tail, he's going to scream, he's going to get louder. So leave him alone. Don't jack with the ego. You love your ego like you would said child. Give him the lollipop, the banana. And I had a conversation with my smaller self. I said, listen, buddy, come here. I said, let daddy talk to you. I said, you and I want the same thing, but you're too loud. You're distracting me, the one who can get it, from where it's at and how to find it. Because, it's kind of like driving in your car and you're looking for someone's house. And so you turn the radio down as if that actually helps. And so I said, listen, dude, I want the same thing you want. And since you can't get it because you keep yapping and yammering at me, it's not working. In fact, you're making things worse. If you just sit down and be quiet for a little while, let me go seek it out. I promise you, you will know it as soon as I realize it. You will know it at the same exact time as me. And I stayed with this practice for a while, and I begin to experience the volume or the noise of the monkey begin to quiet. He was just simply pacified being with himself, and he found things to do, basically, whatever it is. But I realized that, it gets loud in there. And I've luckily found a way for me to quieten the noise of the mind.
That's amazing, because I do something really similar, and I use a similar analogy, but instead of candy, I use cookie. Actually say biscuit because I'm English, but cookie. So I say to people, if your mind is going like this, is doing the monkey thing at you, if you ignore it, it's like a child going, can I have a cookie? 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 And it's not going to stop until you either go, yes, here it is, or you can have one later when you've tidied your room, or no, you can't, it's bad for your teeth, or whack across that. It's not going to stop until you have acknowledged it. So similar thing. I say, look, if you're feeling this or you're feeling that and the monkey mind is going, you just have to acknowledge it. Yeah, I hear you. Acknowledge it, and that often pacifies it because it goes, I've been heard. But I absolutely agree with you.
Right.
If it gets on board and you're doing something that you love, and this is why it's so important to, there's something really important here, and it's this. Sometimes what you love as your pure spiritual divine spark is the same as what your ego loves, but it's just, what's the underlying intention, or what's the underlying reason that you're using it? I'll give you an example. One of the things I love doing when I've got time, I don't actually have any time right now, and my husband will tell you I have not done this for ages, but I actually really love cooking. And when I cook, I'm kind of like to do it really particular, and I'll make you a really lovely dish, and I'll do it really beautifully, and I'll spend time, and it'll look lovely, and it'll taste gorgeous. I love doing it. It's a passion when I've got the time to do it. It's a passion. I love it. I love to do that as a service. I enjoy the process of it. I love eating it myself, and I love watching your face when you're eating it. That's coming from my greater self. But if I'm doing it because I need to please you or butter you up or get you to give me something, or because you've said, come on, it's supper time in half an hour, oh, and you're going to whip me something up, and I'm doing it resentfully, I'm then using that skill with the ego self. So I think sometimes it's just like, what's the underlying motivation? Because very often what the ego wants and what the soul self wants are the same thing, but there's a different reason behind it. So when you can do it from the sheer joy and love of doing it, then the ego can be in line and be the servant to the higher self. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Apart from eating, what is another one of your passions? One of those things that just sets you aglow?
I really love both learning and teaching, which is why I study the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch. I've been studying it for 15 years. I absolutely adore learning and growing and hearing other perspectives and growing in awareness and consciousness. And I find that fascinating. And then when I've learned something, I love sharing it. So I love to teach. I love to speak. I mean, even on my school report, Bridget talks too much. I love talking. I love this evening. It's been fabulous. It's just such a joy to talk, and particularly to talk to someone like yourself, who's on the same level, who's got similar understandings, and to talk about things that matter, and the world, humanity, love, consciousness. So yeah, I love learning. I love teaching. I love writing, actually. I didn't think I would, but I really love writing as well. I love nature. I live by the ocean. I live in a beautiful part of the world. And to just sit in my garden and hear the ocean and look at the mountains and watch the birds is just a blissful, joyful thing for me. Yeah, I love hanging out with my husband. I absolutely love South Africa. There's something about the land here that resonates very deeply with this, even though I'm English. It resonates very, very deeply with me. And I go out into the desert, and we just went to Namibia a couple of months or so ago. Just breathtaking, natural beauty. So those are the things that light me up.
Something you said a minute ago is pretty much, it is my whole life, which is talking, writing, recording music. I sit in this chair. I literally live in this office chair, this $99 office chair. I wake up.
I live in this one.
You and I parallel so well.
I tell you what, I love music and I love dancing as well. So you got to play the music, I'll start dancing.
I wake up in the morning, I sit in this chair, and my whole day, whatever the task may be, is about things that matter. It's truly about things that matter. I love learning and I love teaching as well. I love plugging into the system. I love giving to the system more than receiving. And in so doing, I receive abundantly. I've never been to South Africa. You're in Cape Town, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Cape Town.
You're by the ocean. What ocean? What is the body of water there?
Actually, interestingly, on the side that I live, it's the Atlantic. So it's the southern Atlantic, and the next piece of land is Antarctica. It's flipping cold. It's really cold. And then as we go over the other side of the peninsula, it goes into the Indian Ocean. So it gets warmer progressively as you go east towards Mozambique. So you go into the Indian Ocean. But where I am, it's the Atlantic, and it's cold. But it's very clean, and that's a good thing. So
we're at the top of the hour, dear. I really enjoyed my time with you, my no time with you. Would you like to leave us with a bang, something that just comes from your heart that you're just going to fire out, just a final thought of things that you can maybe offer us to meditate on, or to salivate? I don't know. Hey.
Look, I really think we're in a gateway moment right now, and it's the most powerful moment in history. And are you going to be with the program or not? We're raising consciousness. Just make the choice. Choice is so powerful. Just make the choice, and then the world will open up to you. And yeah, meditation, the most powerful tool you can have. There's loads of things you can do, but I think meditation and stillness is the way to go.
Cosmic Sister, I'd love to have you back. I really enjoyed my time with you. I love what I do with all these people, but there are certain few, not better than the other, just personal favorites. You're definitely one of those, because we can talk about anything and we don't need a script. I get it. Sometimes radio, you go by a format, and I do that as well. But sometimes when I let go of the reins and forget all the formalities, and I get to hang out with someone that I recently re-met from an older time, and I thought about that when your love for South Africa. Maybe it's a revisit.
Oh, I do know that. I've had a couple of past lives here. Yeah, I had to go and collect one. That's another story for another time.
Love it, sister. Thank you very much. Blessings to you and yours, and we'll see you soon.
Blessings
hopefully.
To you, brother. Thank you, Keith.
Stay in touch just to say hi, and my wall is your wall. Post what you need, and we'll be in touch.
Fabulous.
Blessings, everyone. Keith Anthony Blanchard here tonight. My guest was Miss Bridget Finklaire, and you can find her links to her website as well as her new book coming out soon in this forum. Let me see if I did something correctly. I hope I get some grace from myself. 1 second. I'll find my exit music, which I don't see. I guess I'm just going to exit. Peace, love, and light. I'm going to do a presentation, I believe, Thursday night. I don't know what the subject's going to be about, but it's going to be powerful. I invite you to be in my heart as I launch myself to be with you. Just know you're loved beyond measure. There's nothing ever was, is now, or can ever be more important and beautiful than you. When you begin to live that, when you begin to integrate that, and you begin to see, feel, and be that, then you will free yourself. Happy liberation. Take care of yourself.